Thank you. So I'll try to make this quick so we don't impede on the break too much. So I'm David Cavanaugh. I'm a data scientist at Werner Enterprises, and we're going to talk about the impact of a new trucking terminal. So high level, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to go through who Werner is and what we do, overview of just site selection and some of the challenges doing that at a trucking company. We'll talk about the diversion analysis itself, how we calculate efficiency based on that and improve the original analysis, and then wrap everything up. So first, to start to talk about who Werner Enterprises is, we're an asset-based logistics provider. We're one of the largest truckload carriers in the United States. We operate a fleet of over 8,000 trucks and a fleet of over 27,000 trailers. We have a network of terminals and driver schools across the United States that service that fleet and that provide us opportunities to interact with our drivers while they're on the road and provide any services and amenities they may need. And really, I bring a lot of the network up about our locations because I want to give you an understanding of the scale of our operations and how many trucks we have moving across the country. And that leads us into some of the challenges that we face when we're trying to understand the impact of a new trucking terminal to an old one. So if we build a new facility, and we'll get into this example as we go into it, if we build a new facility in the Fort Worth area, what does that do to our existing facility in the Dallas area? And the reason why I talk about the scale of Werner is on any given day, our trucks are traveling hundreds of miles, on average 255 up to over 1,000 miles a day when we have teams running continuously. Compare that to our average vehicle, automobile, personal trips. They're much shorter. I mean, most of the time, we're not even going 30 miles when we get in the car and drive. And that contrast makes it really challenging for us to understand which trucks are going to be where and when and which facility are they going to go to because the scale is just so massive. There's this huge web, and you can see that here. I took all of the trucks that went into our Dallas facility across a couple days and followed them backwards and saw where they came from. And you can see just in Dallas, we're covering a majority of the central Midwest. And so that scope and that spider web makes it really challenging. And when you start to try to get your brain around all of this, it can just become overwhelming, and then you're coming up with these complex algorithms that you then have to explain to business leaders and to other stakeholders to kind of provide this analysis. And that can be really complicated and really challenging. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk all the way down. We're going to kind of build simplicity into our analysis intentionally. We're going to almost oversimplify things initially and then start to build from that point. So the goals here really are to be quick, something that we can turn around in a day, maybe two, and then easily explainable, something that I can send to any business stakeholder with a lot of geospatial experience or with no geospatial experience, and they can understand what it is we're getting at and how we got there. So the method at a high level is figure out the user base. The next one is following the tractors. The next step is to determine how close those tractors are getting to the new site location, and then just aggregate, multiply, and divide, and then we'll be there. And that's really abstract, so we're going to talk about a specific example here that I alluded to earlier with Dallas and Fort Worth. So what is our user base? Really, for us, that is who is going to that existing facility. And we can look at the GPSs coming off of the truck, understanding when they went into our facility, using the geofences around those areas, so we can get those entrance timestamps. When are you going into our facilities? And then we can take that entrance timestamp and follow it backwards. We can, quote unquote, follow the truck. We can follow it. I usually work around 12 hours. You can kind of change that depending on how far away the facilities are and depending on how much movement of the trucks you have in that area. Then, once you have that path, you can look at some isochrones around the new facility. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depends on the relationship between the new facility and the existing facility. You can kind of use a little bit of that intuitive understanding that you have about your business to determine the sizes of those polygons. And then you can see who's going through what polygon. If your truck is going within 5 minutes of your new location, it's reasonably safe to assume that they're probably going to start going there because they're driving right by anyway. If it's maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, so-so, right? It depends on the day. It might depend on where they're coming from or going to, things like that. And then anything beyond that 20, 25 minutes, it's a toss-up. Maybe they go here, maybe they don't. And we can start to use those buckets and those categories to break down those trucks by you're likely to divert, you're not likely to divert, calculate the percentages, and determine 35% are going to possibly switch. Now, as part of this, we're intentionally making it simple. And within this, we can start to build on it. It's really just a good starting point for us. So once we have this, we have our percentages, we kind of have to, no pun intended, divert a little bit away from it and talk about efficiency. So in the truckload transportation world, there's this concept of out of route. And basically, out of route is anytime you're driving from an origin to a destination and you have to divert from that route. Principally, it's any additional mileage gained, because we all know there's more than one way to go from one point to another. So effectively, it's about establishing a base mileage, and then any additional mileage beyond that is considered out of route. So when we think about this in the context of diversion, what we really want to know is, are our drivers driving more or less to get to a possible new facility? Because if you think about this in the retail setting or something like that, we may not necessarily care how our customers get to our store and whether or not they drove the most efficiently to get from their place to your store. You don't necessarily care. You more or less care that they just ended up there. We care very much about how our trucks and our drivers are getting to our facilities, because any additional mileage out of route is unpaid miles. Those are not billed to our customers because we bill on a mileage basis. And so we want to know, how does this improve our efficiency in our network? And so the next question that we're going to really tackle here is can we get an understanding of what that additional efficiency may be, while at the same time actually improving on some of our initial diversion analysis that we were doing. And to do this, we're just going to take a look at two trips, right? So I intentionally chose these for particular reasons, because they provide both scenarios, right? This same idea of the two facilities in Fort Worth versus Dallas, right? If we consider a route that's going from Abilene to Shreveport, that's basically an east to west sort of route. As it goes through Dallas, you can see that the base mileage that we're traveling is 368 miles. That is undeviated. You start, you get in your car, you drive, you don't get off the interstate or wherever until you get to your destination. If we go through the Dallas terminal, we're adding a mile, right? You're basically barely even getting off the interstate. It's like stopping at a gas station on the way. But if we went through the Fort Worth location, we're actually adding a few more miles to that, and that's something that we want to consider. So in this instance, we've not only determined the efficiency difference between the two facilities, we're actually looking at a more sophisticated definition of who's more likely to divert and why. Because ultimately, it's that path of least resistance. If you're driving right by, you're much more likely going to stop there than if you're going to have to divert a lot further away. And so that works to answer sort of both of our questions. And a similar sort of route, Austin to Oklahoma City, this is now a north-south sort of situation where we're adding more miles onto the Dallas side of things as compared to the Fort Worth side of things from the previous example. So that changes based on where you start and where you end up. And when we analyze all of the tractors from our user base that we had described earlier for who's going to the Dallas terminal facility, we can understand where are they starting, where was their origin, and then where is their destination. And then we can look at, okay, based on that, route that directly, and then route it through the Dallas facility, and then route it through the new facility, and compare all three of those to understand what the impact is to our network. So I'm going to kind of wrap that up here. Focus on explainability with the diversion analysis. It's quick, it's simple. You don't have to calculate a whole bunch of things. It's really easy to explain to your business audience, to any laity who don't understand what they're necessarily seeing right out of the gate. And we can improve on that a little bit and answer some additional questions with the efficiency analysis, because just because we're saying they're going to go from Dallas to Fort Worth or flip locations doesn't mean that that's more efficient. So ultimately, we want to understand what that expected change is and how that impacts our costs and the additional benefit of adding that new facility. And of course, that improvement also serves as an enhancement on the initial sort of naive approach that we did with that base diversion analysis and just the isochrones. We can actually improve on that with the out-of-route perspective as well. So that's all I've got. I know we're kind of cutting into a break here, so we'll probably take questions afterwards. If you catch me in the hall or in any of the breaks, let me know. So hopefully I didn't steal too much time and can get everyone out to break to get coffee and go to the bathroom. So thank you very much.